Heartiest welcome to Global Talk Show by Business Power Academy, Netherlands. And today from UK, a very brilliant, a very versatile guest we have. And he is none other than Marc Singer. And I must also use his prefix, Marc Singer Coaching, you can say. Yeah. Welcome, Marc, to our show today. It's a privilege hosting you today.
It's a pleasure being invited on to talk to you, so thank you.
Well, before I take a deep dive in my journey with Marc, let me apprise of him. He is an international best-selling author, keynote speaker, mindset coach, and of course, a very versatile personality. So let's take this journey on. And my first question, Marc, well, people know about you, but still, we want to know your incredible journey from you. You are here, but still I know the waves of life, the challenges of life. So you can tell your great story today.
Okay. I'm happy to, yeah. I mean, well, it's about where the question is, where do I start? I mean, about, what was it, 12, 13 years ago, I was convicted of a crime that I hadn't committed and given a life sentence in prison. And in the UK, we have a certain type of sentence, which is they give you, if you've offended in the past and you offend again, they give you a sentence with no release date. And I was given one of these sentences. And during that period, while I was incarcerated, I endured the tragic losses of all my family, basically, one after the next. Within 12 months. In 12 months, I lost 33 family members, animals, things that I loved, such as the family home and so on, all within a very short space of time. So it was an extremely tough time. And on top of that, not knowing if you're ever going to be released from prison as well. So you have that mental block, torture, or whatever you want to call it, going on at the same time. So it's a question of how do you motivate yourself? How do you keep going when you've lost everything, pretty much? So it was a very difficult time, but it's worth going backwards a little bit because it would have been easy for me to look at that whole situation and be the victim. You know, on the surface, you see yourself as a victim of injustice, and everybody else would have seen that. And yes, to an extent, obviously I was, because to be convicted of something you haven't done, you have to be a victim of injustice. However, my perspective of the situation was that earlier on in my life, when I was young, I went off the rails, so to speak. I developed a set of beliefs and attitudes which were antisocial, and I got myself into a lot of trouble. I was involved in a gang and things like that, drugs and all that sort of stuff as a youngster. And for many years, that was my life. I was involved in trouble with the police and so on. And that's why when I was arrested for this thing later on in life, which I hadn't done, I was convicted because I was the way they saw it, it was like, well, he's been in trouble before, he must have done this. So that's why I ended up getting convicted in this time. So I didn't see myself as the victim. I saw myself as, I recognized at that time that it was my beliefs, my attitudes that got me into this situation. So I took responsibility for that rather than sort of felt like the victim and blamed everyone else, which wasn't easy at first, because at first, obviously, you're going to look at the fact that you are a victim, but eventually you have to look at it from the perspective of what was my involvement in that. And I did that, and I decided to work on my attitudes, my beliefs whilst in prison. And it was 2 years into that sentence, I was in there total 6 years, that I was doing all right. I was actually feeling good. I was optimistic, positive, because I'd done a lot of self work on myself. But then that was when Christmas 2013, my mother got ill and she died of cancer very quickly after only 2 weeks. And it was such a shock because it happened so quickly. And I had to deal with the funerals. I had to deal with you arrange all of that from prison. At the time, I was locked up in a cell for 23 hours a day. So it's very difficult, obviously, to do all of that whilst being incarcerated in a cell. Anyway, I did that. I managed to get through that. And then after 3 months, I moved to another prison to be closer to my father. And that was literally 3 months after my mother had passed, that my father died as well. But this time I was on the phone to him and he had a cardiac arrest and died while I was talking to him. So I had to arrange his funeral as well. So the whole time I couldn't break down. I couldn't have a, emotional breakdown. I had to cope with all of that myself. I had no money. I had nothing like supporting me in there. The only thing I had was a few friends outside helping. And on top of that, I had to sell the family home. We had 21 cats, and I had to get the cats all rehomed, which broke my heart because I loved them all. And my cat, ironically, and this is another weird turn of events, my cat, who was my like baby, and I've got a picture of it right there, she died suddenly the day before my mother died. Now, just weird turns of events. So it was like a knock-on effect, cards knocking down. It was like everybody who was any important in my life was going like that. And it started with my cat, then my mother, then my father, then my grandfather died. And like I said, in total, 33 in total, and all the cats. And I managed to keep it together for a while, mentally and emotionally. Well, not emotionally. I had to bury the emotions to get through it. But it was after about a year, I'd moved to a new wing in prison, and it was an open wing. So you had more movement, you had more freedom. So I was actually pleased about that. And I phoned a friend to tell her about that. And she told me that my ex-girlfriend and my best friend were now in a secret relationship together. That turned out to be the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of my emotional, because I bottled all those emotions up, you see, to get through the day-to-day stuff. And it was like everything just came out, and I took an overdose. I hit rock bottom, and luckily I survived. I didn't die. Someone found me, gave me CPR, and I was all right. But that was my moment when I realized this is my turning point. I decided there and then not to be the victim anymore, because I'd seen myself again. I'd got into that victim mindset, and it was at that moment that I decided, right, I'm going to stop focusing on getting out of prison. I'm not going to focus on what I've lost and all the other things, the injustices and all of that. I'm just going to focus on what I can do day to day to be the best version of myself, one day at a time. How can I be better than the day before? And literally, that's all I did, and focused on things like studying, working in the prison. I was teaching kids in there in the education department, and just exercise and things like that, just to be better, to feel good. And gradually, over a period of time, I started feeling more optimistic, more positive. Until everything changed. I mean, I eventually got let out of prison, very much to my surprise, because I wasn't expecting it at all. But it was after 6 years, they said, right, we've recognized that, since all you've been through, we've got no doubt that you would be able to cope with whatever is happening out you can face outside. So they let me out. And that was a big shock as well, be honest with you, because I'd had to come out to everything new. I was actually quite happy in prison. Believe it or not, I knew everyone knew me, and I got on with everyone. So getting let out to nothing was also a big shock, but that's pretty much what happened. And so, yeah, generally over that, it took me a year or so to really adjust back into society. And then I fell upon coaching, ironically. And what happened is earlier when I was in prison, I did a business course, and they asked me, hypothetically, what would you do if you could build a career? And the first thing that came to mind was life coach, and I had no clue what a life coach was. And that sort of planted the seed. But then they did a bit of research, and I looked at all the qualities and skills that a life coach would have, and that I had them. So long story short, when I got out of prison, I started having a bit of coaching myself, and it sowed the seed. And I thought to myself, what, this is for me. And so what I did is I looked into it properly, researched it, and I found the top school I could find worldwide. Happened to be IPEC, Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. And I went for it. I just enrolled. It cost me a lot of money, but it was the best thing I ever did. So yeah, that's my story in a short version anyway.
Mark, I don't have words to express how you felt when your life story was sometimes shaking, sometimes stable. And when you told me about a series of deaths in your family, I mean, you are so bold to handle those things in your life. It's not at all easy for a human being to go through all those emotional trauma. And
No
I
wonder it's so bad.
must say, Mark, the way you handled everything, like be optimistic, be positive, you have to maintain your enthusiasm, because losing people, losing your family members is really, really just like, I can't express those feelings, but
It puts
it
things into
does.
perspective.
Yeah,
That's what it does.
I do agree. I
You
do
know.
agree.
Mm.
But there is a saying, all well that ends well. And now we see Mark Singer as a mindset coach, because maintaining your mind, establishing your mind in a very firm manner, huddling, fighting with your life and all problems. But you did not lose your heart. That's the beauty of your story, Mark. And I
Mm.
must appreciate you, the way you fought and the way you're fighting, and really the position which you are today is really inspiring. And that's why
Thank you.
we are listening your story. And I'm sure people who are watching your story live today on this global talk show, and who are
Yeah,
going to see this video later, view this video later, they're going to just
definitely. Yeah.
filled with a lot of enthusiasm. And whenever they will lose their enthusiasm, they are going to remember your
Well,
life.
this is it. I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, it's about inspiring others to because everybody's going to be going through some sort of difficulty in their life. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a loss, hardship, whatever. And if you can change the way you view whatever you're looking at and look at it from a perspective which creates optimism, good feelings and things like that, you change your situation. It's all about how we see situations in life. And if we're looking at a problem, we're only going to see the problem. If you're looking at an opportunity, you're going to see what's possible and what you can do. And that's what we have to really do when we're facing things like this.
And I love the way
problem.
you will keep on looking on only on the brighter side, positive side, optimistic, and you were just moving. Otherwise, if there was any other person who would have given up, from life
But
and
it's
thought,
easy to do that. It's easy to do that. We can all give up. And sometimes whenever we experience any trauma of any kind, could be it doesn't have to be something as severe as what I went through, but any kind, we go into like that victim mindset. It's a natural thing that we all do. We get angry, frustrated, victimized. We blame others. We look at we feel guilty or whatever it is. And that's a lot of stuff to work through. So it can take a lot of work, internal work, to work through that. However, if you're able to recognize that you're going through that in the first place, and you're having what I call a stress reaction, you're able to flip your perspective quite quickly and get yourself out of it quicker as well. A lot of people spend years in that sort of mindset and it doesn't help them at all. And it's much more productive to actually be able to switch your perspective to something that serves you and therefore helps you move forward. It doesn't make your situation any easier. Losing your family and things isn't easy, but you can make the best of whatever's going on if you look at it from a different perspective.
yes, very true. Very, very true, Mark. And really, it's a series of problems and a series of optimism which Mark has produced. We can say that today. Well, moving to this lovely journey of Global Talk Show with Mark, I would love to know about Mark's book. He is a great author, best-selling author, and his book, which we can say is really doing wonders. And Mark, tell me something about your book titled "To Hell and Back and Then Some."
Yeah,
Yes,
it's called To Hell and Back and Then Some. I mean, it's basically my story in terms of the journey, which I've just briefly outlined, but a much more in-depth journey of my whole life, basically. But it's not just about me. It's more about everybody and how we're all going through something at some time and how we can navigate through that in a way that's much more productive, like I just touched on a minute ago. So it's really about how we can all change not just our lives and our way that we're going about things mentally and emotionally, but we can create whatever we want with our lives if we've got the right mental and emotional structure to that. And it really is as simple as that. If you break it down, it's much harder to implement. This is why people hire coaches in the first place, to help us stay accountable to do the work, because it's very easy to read a book and say, right, I'm going to do that. But most of us don't do it. This is the thing. So, staying accountable to do the work is one of the hardest things any of us can do, because we get distracted. We lose focus. We don't do the things that we know work for us unless we've got someone keeping us accountable to do that. So what the book really talks about is what we can do to stay accountable to doing the work that we need to do in order to be the best versions of ourselves. And it takes time to build that within ourselves. But when you've got that sort of mental and emotional structure that you can work with, you can create anything you want with your life. And that's what it's all about, really. It's about learning how we can do that and staying accountable to ourselves to do so. And so the story of the book is, yeah, it's okay, it is my story, but it's not just about that. It's about how everybody else is going through the exact same situation in some way, and how they can actually create what they want with their lives as well.
But you are a mindset coach, so you can turn anything positive. That is the beauty of your course. So tell me something about your mindset coach, how you deal people, and my global audience would be love to coming to you and changing their lifestyle, transforming their life. Yeah.
Well, I learned when I went to see, a lot of people don't really understand what it's all about. I mean, I've had people say to me, well, have you had any training and things like that? Well, the thing is, with coaching, there's so much murkiness about it. If you go on LinkedIn or anywhere like that, there's thousands of coaches. The reality is most of them are just haven't got any training or qualifications or anything like that. When I went to IPEC to be trained, they didn't just train me how to coach. They taught me a whole new way of thinking, believing, living, philosophy of life, basically. It's called the core energy coaching process. Now, when I work with any client, I don't just coach them about whatever they want. Like, say, for instance, someone says to me, I want a new job. I won't just say, right, what do we need to do to get to that job? We look at it holistically, and I will work on 6 core areas in everybody's life. We'll look at what's working for you, what's not working for you in your life, in terms of your beliefs, your perceptions, your attitudes. We would help work through all of that so that we can create a much more optimistic, positive way of seeing things generally. We'll remove the things that don't work. We create a structure for you to work towards whatever it is that you want to achieve in your life. We help you become much more aware of the things that hold us back, such as fear, anxiety, those sort of things. We work through that sort of stuff. So it's a process. I work with clients not really on a one-to-one session basis, because I'd like to work with clients over a longer period of time, because it gives us the opportunity to create something. If you're working with someone over just like 1 or 2 sessions, you don't get that opportunity, because it's like dipping your toe in and out. So you've got to put the work in. And I'm very, very meticulous about who I work with in terms of, are they ready to do the work? Because if someone's not really bothered or not really a bit half-hearted about it, they won't do the work, and that's not going to help any of us. It's a waste of everybody's time. So I'm very meticulous about who I work with and how I work with them, because it's important that they're ready to do the work, because at the end of the day, it's them who does the work, not me. Because I'm helping them, guiding them, teaching them, but I'm not doing the work, because they've got to do it themselves. So they've got to be ready to do that, and if they are, then they can create whatever they want with their lives, and I'll help them do that. So it's a case of really learning a new way of thinking and implementing that over a period of time. And it works. It's worked for me, and it works for everybody else who I've helped, all the other clients I've had. So it's really about how determined someone is to do the work. And if they are, then there's nothing stopping them.
Exactly, Mark. This is really true. And yes, I will request my global audience who are watching us live, if you really want to transform your life in attitude, belief, and also your perception towards life, and you want to become the best version of yourself, so go to the best coach, and he's none other than Marc Singer. So you can approach to him. He will help you in changing your life, in changing your belief, and of course, you be the best version of your life and be a successful person. So why delay? Just get focused on Marc and leverage his coaching. Yes, great one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. I mean, I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding, and there's a lot, like I said to you, they think coaching's about, it's mystical stuff, it's about the universe or stuff like that. It's not. It's common sense, basic common sense. If you think the right stuff, you feel the right stuff, and if you feel the right stuff, your actions follow suit. Simple as that. So learning how to be much more conscious in how we think, how we choose our thoughts, how we create our feelings and emotions, and how we create our actions. And if you're learning that, that's a very simple process, but it's learning how to do it. And that's a very simple thing. It's common sense. It really is logical and common sense.
Exactly, 100%.
Mm.
Well, this is really great learning about Mark's journey, incredible, his challenges. Oh my gosh, numerous challenges and numerous opportunities, and of course, his pious work. Now let's move to the another segment, and I would love to know what is Mark's mission, what he has planned for the future.
So what's my mission in life, you mean, in general? Sorry, there was a train going past, I couldn't hear all that. So no, my mission really is to, well, I suppose, help as many people as I can. I mean, the truth of the matter is that, I never thought that I'd ever be doing this, what I do now. If you'd have asked me 20 years ago, would I be a coach? I actually remember, actually. So I went to, what was it? A clairvoyant sort of thing, years and years ago. And they said to me, you're going to end up being a teacher. And I laughed because I thought, I'll never be a teacher. What's she talking about? So at the time I was working as a car salesman, and I thought there's no chance of me ever being a teacher. So I had my head like me in a school teaching people. And I said, nah. But then that's exactly what I am now, because I am teaching people how to think in a different way to how they normally would. We spend all our lives thinking and acting and, feeling a certain way, and it's programmed within us. So we are defensive when it comes to looking at things differently. We think, it's a load of rubbish or whatever. But when we do open our minds up to new things, we learn new things. And this is what I've learned, how to live my life. Now, I'm nowhere near, like, in financial terms or whatever, as successful as you want. But I've learned that doesn't mean anything to me, because it's not about materialistic. I mean, that's what I learned when I was in prison. It's not about having material things. You don't have to be surrounded by luxury to be happy. I'd lost everything in my life when I was in prison, and I was still happy. So you don't need a fast car, you don't need a mansion, you don't need all of that to be happy and content. That's not success for me. Success is how you think, how you feel, and how you act on a day-to-day basis. That's success. And if you're happy without stress, without worry, without anxiety and all the other stuff, then you're successful. So my mission is to teach as many people as I can to live the same way, to bring, to create that lifestyle for themselves so that they're happy. And if I can do that, then I'm successful as well.
Wow, this is really awesome, Mark. And yes, I reciprocate the same. Yes, when you are happy in heart and you have a peaceful life, you are more successful rather than being in the, trauma or tornado of depressions, anxieties, stress.
Exactly.
And that's defined the value of how successful you are. And people are running towards happiness, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But exactly the pieces, the solution is still inside them. So they have to discover themselves. They have to explore themselves and discover the light.
It's all about self-awareness. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I read something recently that 98% of all of our lives, all human beings, we spend not consciously in the moment. So that means you're in your head. That means you're worrying about something, or you're thinking about the past, or you're stressed over something, or you're, whatever it may be, but you're not in the moment living your life in the way that you really want to be living. So all of our lives pass us by in a rush, and we've not been the person we really want to be, because we've been too busy worrying about thinking about the past, or worrying about the future, or whatever it may be. The 2% of our lives is when we're at our most conscious, and we're able to tap into feelings such as joy, passion, contentment, connection, all of these wonderful things. That's when we do that. But wouldn't it be great if we could do that all the time? And essentially, that's what this process, this philosophy that I teach, helps people do. Check in with their mind in a way where they're able to switch off the worries, the anxiety, and all of those things that we don't want to be feeling, and tap into things such as joy, passion, contentment, all of these lovely things that we want to feel, love, all of these wonderful things that we want to be experiencing more often. And if you can do that more consistently over a long period of time, your life is going to be wonderful. whatever happens.
Exactly.
So, you know, this is what it's all
You have
about.
to
It's
train
about
your
living.
mind to be happy in each and every situation. And
Totally.
when you have done that, you know, even the situation comes, you will act accordingly to your mind. Yes, I have to be happy. Yes, I have to be content. So that's the mantra Mark has shared with us. So I hope everybody liked it. And before I say goodbye and goodbye or good evening or whatever it is, I would love to know, Mark, your powerful message to our global audience who are waiting.
Well, a good question. What would we message? I would say, instead of focusing on problems, focus on opportunities, because we're programmed to focus on problems in life. We always focus, it's natural, it's human nature. Whenever something happens, we focus on what's wrong about the situation, what's going on, how's this affecting me. If you can change your perspective to focus on what the opportunity is, in that moment, everything changes for you. And it takes a lot of self-awareness to do it, because we have to recognize that we're having a what I call a stress reaction, and we're thinking in negative terms. But recognizing that in the first instance is your key to changing how you're thinking. Switch your thinking to opportunity, and everything changes for you. So that's the thing. And the amount of opportunities we just turn away in our lives because we're too busy overthinking it, questioning it, focusing on what could go wrong. And then those opportunities are our doors to go into the next level of a life, move forward and things like that. And we just let those things pass us by. And then we wonder why we don't have opportunities to move forward in life, because you've just let it go past.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's my message, is stop focusing on problems and focus more on opportunities.
Wow, this is really a powerful, a very awesome message, Mark, you have given to world. And I'm sure people are going to love this show. People are going to love this inspiring journey. And whenever they will lose heart in any situation of their life, they're going to remember Mark Singer, and they're going to get same enthusiasm and move up in their life. So thank you so
I hope
much,
so.
Mark, for coming to our show. Heartfelt
It's my
gratitude
pleasure.
to you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, my global audience, for always loving us. Keep doing that. Till then, stay happy, hale and hearty. Bye-bye for now.